Got it. And there I am. All right, welcome everyone. I will call quorum. I'll call the roll call. Dr. Windsor, I am present. I can't remember everybody. I'll just start with who was here. Mrs. Mendonça.
Here.
Ms. Garrison.
Here.
Dr. Stephanie.
You could just call me Pena.
Yeah.
Here.
Mrs. Baker.
Here.
Okay, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 5. So we should be good. All right, Dr. Tejan, not here. Dr. Hess, Hess. I still haven't removed him off of everything, so I still have to call his name. Dr. Hess, not here. Mrs. Schmaltz, not here. Am I forgetting anybody?
McNeil.
Ah, yes. Mrs. McNeil, thank you.
And did you say Dr. Tegan?
I did.
Okay.
Okay. We can call us to order at 5:03.
Wait, would you still have to say, if you didn't remove Dr. Hess, you might not have removed Miss Montano?
Oh, was that the last board meeting as well?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Mrs. Montano.
Okay.
Very good. I'll get that done. Maybe this week. I'll do my best. All right, call to order at 5:03. We want to welcome Mr. Bryce with us, our trusted counselor of financial things and corporate business in general. I appreciate him a lot. All right, I will put up first items, item 2, to look at the board meeting minutes from last time. Let me get that up. If I can. All right. All right, any discussion on the May 16th, 2022 meetings minutes? Not, I entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Beth, and a second.
I'll second Missouri Baker.
Baker second. All approved by voice, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Everybody together, you can.
Yes.
Is there any opposed? Hearing none opposed, motion passes unanimous. All right. I will now, I don't have it, well, actually I do have, I'll share my screen for the enrollment. I think it's important for you to understand how we do this and how we count numbers. Did that show with the Excel spreadsheet?
Yes.
Very good. All right. At this point, just for your knowledge, every month over the last year, as you can see at the bottom, we record our enrollment. And in that way, we can compare a year by year, like where should we be according to last year? So last year at this time on let's say the 28th of June last year, we are at a total of 679. That puts things in perspective a little bit to know, should we be freaking out? Should we be worried? Or do we feel comfortable with where we are? So the total was, and one of the key places to look frequently is kindergarten enrollment, because that seems to fill up the last, okay? 65 a year ago today or tomorrow, 769 is the total enrollment. So if we scoot now to a year, this is how the executive team analyzes our progress. So as of this was on Friday, you can see that our kindergarten was actually, this year, what I've asked our registrar to do is not put them in the orange means we've received all the documents and they're fully in the system. And I want to know, the executive team wants to know how many is actually in the system. But the green, we've received all the information we need, they're enrolled, but we might be missing one or two documents. So as you look now, that means that enrollment for kindergarten at this time is 82. So we're about where we need to be as according to a year ago. And then if you look down the bottom, 789 is our total enrolled. And what was last year, 772 or
69, I think.
769. So we're a little bit ahead of the game according to the enrollment. But if you look at what we want to do is we have the 99 plus the 79 is 888, I believe, right? Why can't I do that with my computer?
You are correct. Hold them control.
Okay, moving back and forth. But it's 888. And a year ago at this time, we were at, what was the best, 7 something?
I think it was 769.
769.
You were comparing, Brian, to 628 as well last year, not 621. So you're actually a week behind in our numbers now.
Oh, that's true.
We're even better. That's my point.
Right. Yeah. So we're looking encouraged. Joel, could you remind us about what our base enrollment goal is to make on the budget?
Yes, I can, but give me 1 second. I'm going to have to look that up. So
I think it's
bear
930.
with me.
I think it's 930.
936 is the base enrollment goal.
936.
Students, 876 ADM, but 936 students.
So you can see if we're at 888, we're where we need to be, we're where we're supposed to be. July picks up a whole bunch with kindergarten and other enrollments. Any questions how this works? Any comments or concerns that you see on the enrollment? You can see at this point, also want to point out that we're 6th grade. I believe 6th grade is full at this point, and 7th grade is full at this point. You see that -3 means we have a waiting list. We don't yet because we enroll them, but we're over by 3, and 6th grade, I believe at this point, it's because I haven't got the new report. But 6th grade is also full at our capacity. If no other question on that, I'm going to stop sharing that.
Quick question, Dr. Windsor.
Yes, ma'am.
Math is not my suit, but our retention looks strong. Is that how you would?
Yes, our retention.
Call it,
Yes,
or
that's a good
talk about
point. I want to bring that back up because that's a very good point. Because you can see that our and I don't mean retention like as in kids that we retained that came back again. Yes, that was very strong.
Okay.
Over years, we don't tend to lose a lot of kids to other schools, and that's kind of nice.
Yeah, I was curious, being that it was the first years of the Liberal Arts Academy, to see what that retention might look like compared to, right, the elementary.
Yeah.
So that's a good indication.
The other thing I wanted to report is just on general staffing, because one of the questions becomes retention of our teachers, the churn rate. And Beth and I were calculating that today, and we lost 7 teachers who we wanted to come back, but there were 7 between all of the grades who left either because of they moved out of state. The drive might have been too far. They might have found a place that offered more money. What were some other reasons, Beth? Do you remember?
A good many of them moved, like they're teaching abroad or just teaching closer to home. And it wasn't at that point, it wasn't even a gas. It was just trying to get closer to home because they were driving so far and it was taking time away from their families.
Right.
Yeah.
And we didn't lose too many others. It was a really good year. Off the top of my head, we only didn't invite a very few back. Like I think it was 3 or 4 that we didn't invite back. So it was a really good year for retaining our teachers. We did some other things last year, like a retaining bonus that encouraged them. But I think more than that, I want to celebrate Sam Perez for the culture she's built at Paideia Liberal Arts Academy in their first year. And it's just a really joyful place. It's just a joyful place to be. And we spent from October to May reestablishing our culture at the elementary school, and the teachers and leaders over there, I think, did a marvelous job of bringing back Paideia's culture, and we'll continue that next year. Other staffing issues that I want you to be aware of is last year we lost our principal, as you remember, in October. And we have a new principal has started. It will start officially on Friday, and I have great hopes for him for the elementary school. We also lost our special ed director in November, Beth, October?
September.
I pushed that back further and further.
It's etched in my brain, Brian. It is.
Yes, it would be. So that put a great strain, and I want to celebrate Mrs. Mendonça. She took on a great extra load to manage the special ed department. Thankfully, she's highly competent and highly skilled in special ed law and special ed processes and everything. And then we have a new special ed director, Mi-San Chu, who I'm just delighted and thrilled. And she's so professional. I mean, I think she's a great balance, Beth, right? Between competence and character.
Very much so.
A marvelous person.
Yeah.
We also lost one of the Victoria's coaches, Mrs. Bishop, who had a baby and went home to be mom to this new baby. And we have a new coach, Rohini Kunat, who has been with us for, I don't remember when she wasn't. I know she went to India, home for a little minute, but Victoria, would you agree that that's going to be a marvelous move there?
Yes, it's going to be a wonderful move, and all the teachers already know her, so it's going to be wonderful.
Yeah. So very excited about that. All right. Last is summer construction for Paideia Liberal Arts Academy, the financing. Joel, I'd like you can you just tell about that finance meeting we attended and the joyful thing we found out at the end that I had no idea that we were like that? You know what I'm talking about?
I think I know. Let's see. Let's find out.
5 bids.
So yeah, in this process, we have engaged a financial advisor to facilitate the school in this transaction. And a financial advisor's role is to facilitate the putting together of the credit package and solicitation of bids from different financial institutions. They help us also evaluate total cost of funds and that sort of thing. We had a very, very good response. I think that RFP went out to 8 different financial institutions. We received bids back from all that could bid back. They were all interested, is what Brian's alluding to there. I think there were 5 complete responses to the RFP, of which we reviewed 4. 1 was not really a qualifier. and ended up selecting a bank that I feel gave us extremely favorable terms under the circumstances. And it's really a testament to the financial position of the organization and the performance financially and enrollment and otherwise of the organization, that many banks in a market that is somewhat volatile are that interested in Paideia's business. It really put us we've been talking about this since we first started working together, but someday, people will be, vying for your business, and you'll be in a position where your finances actually save you money. And that is the exact point we're at right now, where we've got significant strength behind us. And we're able to get a very good finance package together, which the kickoff starts, it looks like the 29th, Brian, is that first kickoff call. Yeah.
It was nice because I had no idea until at the end, Paula Permenter, our financial advisor, said how fun it was to work on this one because she got bids. And I didn't know it, but other charter schools and other entities are maybe getting one bid or no bids. And we had 5 from 4% up to 11%.
The lowest was 2.62, but it was not an agreeable package in general at interest only tied to LIBOR. So really, really good competitive offerings.
Yeah. The art room has now been gutted out. It's totally ready for putting carpet down, and it'll be ready for this coming year. The rest of the construction won't happen until the worst time, maybe October or something like that. So it'll be an interesting growing year that if we frame it correctly, it'll be the year of growth, and it'll be this time where kids can say, scholars and teachers, hey, remember when? So we can frame this as a great origination story and our story as we go. All right. Discussion and vote over the Executive Director Performance Evaluation Framework and Rubric with Super-Eval. So over after our meeting last month, I tried to figure out how we even do an executive director evaluation package, and I couldn't figure it out. So I did some research about what other people do. It led me to New York and their package of evaluation and national evaluation organizations of superintendents specifically. And it led me to this research-based program called Super-Eval. So I got in touch with the Dr. Michael, my mind's blank right now. Anyway, I got in touch with him, and he explained how that program works. And I liked it the best of anything. So I wondered, did anybody have an opportunity to look at that evaluation? I will bring it up. I'll share it with you on my screen, I hope. Let me see if I can. Did you have an opportunity to watch that little video about it?
Yeah.
I did.
The idea behind it is more of a growth rubric, more of a setting goals at the beginning and a discussion between the executive director and in the future, maybe the senior, what are we calling that thing I'm going to become someday?
Senior advisor or something?
Yeah, that what I'm going to become someday. And to come up with these ideas of some goals and SMART goals, and what do we want to accomplish this year, going through the rubric to ask the question, what areas do you want to work on and really polish up? Which areas do you feel like you need help with in support? Then the rubric is sent digitally to all the board members. And throughout the year, there's times where we could add comments and add and kind of review it during the year as well, so that it's not just the end of the year, one time review. But the areas, relationship with the board, community relations, staff relationships, business and finance, instructional leadership, And then this is some annual goals to go through and work on.
One question, Dr. Windsor. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna call them competencies. I don't know what they really
I agree.
here.
Yes.
Those are all preset. You get to set your goals, the SMART goals, and then this piece is all preset. Is that right?
That's correct. I think you use the right word, competencies.
Mhm.
So these are set as a rubric.
Okay.
Exactly. And these are from the internet, research-based, international, ITSE anyway, of these different layers of competencies for a superintendent.
Okay. I mean, performance management is quasi my thing. It looks pretty solid. I think the one, I don't know that it gives you, and this is a question of flexibility to say, well, at our school, we really care more about like business and finance. And so that has a higher weighting than the other. So I don't know if that's all a part of their secret sauce or if there's the opportunity to kind of customize that. But it looks like a pretty good starting point. Does for the goals piece, everyone gets to evaluate that as well, or do they only evaluate on the competencies part?
Great question. The goals as well.
Okay.
So because I want to talk about people, but the position. So as the executive director, which is the superintendent of our school, sets these goals and goes through the goals, the board individually and independently can comment on those. And then at the end of the year, it comes back as all of our comments become correlated inside of the final report.
Yeah, I think that would just be interesting to understand how the competency section and the goals section are they like 50-50 or there's some sort of weighting that goes to that. But that was my.
Yeah, so this one is, I don't think the goals. So goal 1 shows the weighting is right here. You see that? So this whatever that goal first was showed no progress toward meeting the goal, showed progress but didn't really meet it.
Right.
Met the established goal or really exceeded it. Though that's the indicators there of the weight.
That factor into the overall rating, right? So in the overall, or are people picking the overall, or is it a calculation between your goal section, right, and your competency section that gives you the overall rating? Or does every person then give you an overall rating, even though they went and, selected each?
Every person would give a rating on each of these competencies.
Mm-hmm.
And then an opportunity for notes. And then each person would give an overall rating on this, along with some notes. And then here's the overall ratings form and with the annual goals.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's comments that would be through here about from the board as a whole. Right. He did mention that if a board member didn't want their comment put on, it could be blocked off, but to me that felt counterproductive. I mean, we're on the board, we're all professionals, and I think whatever comments are here, whoever the executive director is, I know I would love to see the comments and learn and grow. It is a growth model type, and I'm also now taking our principal evaluation rubrics, and kind of pushing them into more of this kind of a modality where I'll meet with the principals as the executive director and go through their evaluation rubric and just ask them, what goals are you going to set and where do you want to grow this year? And I'm going to go that way with them. Any other questions or comments?
Real quick, Dr. Windsor, could you go back to those, what we're referring to as the competencies?
Yes.
So those are all predetermined. Is there an opportunity to add, or is that where you add those competencies in the goals? I'm just curious how this kind of aligns with the expectations that we have as a board for evaluation purposes. I think what's missing for me, I'm always looking for, right, DEI work, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I don't see that anywhere. And I think that's a big part of our community, and because we have predominantly BIPOC students. And so I'm just curious where, if we wanted to adjust or add something like that, or I guess that maybe I should ask that first question. Is that a priority of our board and of the way we're evaluating?
It's a great question.
Among other things, but.
The challenge, when I asked Dr. Michael, when I asked Michael about this, these are based upon a bunch of research. And so this has been, validity and reliability and fidelity with thousands and thousands of this. So these aren't available for adjustment, the competencies. Now, I think where we would go there is to, the board could direct the executive director to say, we would like a goal that has to do with diversity and equity, and we'd like you to work on that. And so we could set up a SMART goal, or I would actually do a WIG type of a goal for our language.
So there's opportunity for us to add to in the goals section, but the other ones are those validated measures, if you will.
Right, exactly.
Which makes sense.
Now, eventually, we have, through this system, there are some other evaluation rubrics that we can apply for the other executive officers of our company. There's also one that the board can use on themselves to see, what you just talked about, Dr. Pena, about what are our goals? What are our values? And what I'm going to do is, on this issue, we're going to have a retreat in the near future to ask those questions, and then to develop a rubric that we can keep track of ourselves and our own effectiveness of the board.
Yeah, that would be great. I read that part when I was reviewing the materials, and I liked it, but I think, as always, I have some input and some suggestions.
I love it. Thank you. That's why you're here. Anything else? Well, if there's nothing else, I would entertain a motion to approve the Executive Director Performance Evaluation Framework and Rubric via maybe Super-Eval program.
I will move to, I'm sorry, what was the phrasing again?
I just read the item. Approve the executive director. I just read item 4.
I'm multitasking here.
You have to repeat it perfectly.
I got you.
Is she really? If not, I'll second.
So, well, if you want to make the motion, I'll second. If you've got the phrasing up.
I don't know if I have
I have it up.
It's like you, Dr. Pena.
I'll make the motion to approve Executive Director Performance Evaluation Framework and Rubric with Super-Eval.
And I'll second. Oh, we can, or Victoria can, whoever, it doesn't matter.
Victoria will go back on mute.
All right, voice, I think we'll do a
one quick question before we
okay,
vote,
very good.
Dr. Windsor. So and this would be for, call it, I don't know, next fiscal year. You're not going to try to use this now going backwards, but just set it and then for going forward. Is that correct?
Well, if speaking for the executive director, his contract says he can't get a raise until we do this. So I would start it now. I would start it now, and maybe that was the goal for this poor soul, that he actually, his performance was to find this and start it. But we can have that another time.
Okay.
But yeah, we should start it now, and I'll make some goals and stuff, and we'll get it launched.
Okay. And I take it you pay for this platform.
Yes, it's
No.
really just pennies. It's $1,000, right? I think it's $1,000, something like that. But yes, we do.
Total for the whole thing is like $2,200 to get it set up, and that includes the eval for one director or superintendent.
All right, I'm going to do a roll call vote. Mrs. Mendonça,
Yes.
Dr. Windsor, yes. Mrs. Baker,
Yes.
Miss Garrison,
Yes.
Dr. Pena.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously. All right, item 5. Thank you, Ms. Baker, for that great question that sent me scrambling into Don Torres's, Ms. Remus's office. So I'm going to get the food service one up first. Second.
Yeah, and just for my education, it'll be good if you could just give us a blurb on like, what our role is in the review of this. So
Thank you. Very good. In our corporate maturity, we adopted what's called, what's it called, Joel?
Like procurement thresholds.
Yeah, but it's called a signature, like signature authority or something like that. It's a table that
delegation of
says
authority.
how much money the executive director can authorize on his or her own.
Mhm.
And this went beyond the threshold of my signature authority. When it gets to be above 100,000, it becomes a resolution by the board.
Okay.
Now I will tell you the history behind this one is directed Mrs. Torres Rivas to go out to bid last January, I believe, or before, on two things. I wanted to bid on catering and on our transportation. She went through the entire process according to the procurement rules with the United States Department of Food and stuff. I can't remember who that is, but it was quite a process. We reviewed 5 different applicants, including our current caterer, and it was quite each one submitted binders, and we had several different employees review each of those binders independent of each other. And according to the rubric we received from that organization who does that, we scored them. From that scoring, we chose 2. And those 2 then were invited on different days, of course, to provide samples. One of them gave us samples before school was out, and we had some of the scholars come in and actually taste and get samples of that food. The next one came in for their samples, I don't know, 2 weeks ago or something like that, 3 weeks ago. And from there, then everyone who evaluated the candidates had a meeting in my office, and we compared notes, and betwixt us all, we chose Nutrition One as our vendor. That's not gonna work. Nutrition One was very close to Healthy Innovations, I think it was called, but Nutrition One tilted to our favor because they completely understood and presented the food for a more grab and go, a more eat in the classroom, a better system to match what we wanted to do in the future. The food was good. They're highly competent. They're also going to come in and take over, not take over, but take some of the burden of management off of Ms. Rivas's shoulders of the day-to-day management of the process. The prices, the meal prices of everybody was pretty similar, so there wasn't much of a difference on that. Anything you want to add, Joel? Do you remember the price? Well, no, you don't. It's all good. Any questions on that? That was the process.
And is this just a regular, do you do it on some cadence, or was it a service level issue that made you go out to RFP?
It was both. So there was some service issues that I wanted to take care of. We also received some we received some, I can't say violation. Anyway, it was a service thing. Plus we'd had this company for 5 years, and I just want to go out to bid every 3 to 5 years on anyone who's providing us services, except if there's any questions about their quality.
Yeah. With CNP, Brian, we're required to do it every 5 years at a minimum.
Very good. We're staying in there. That's good.
You got it.
And you can see that. I want to point one thing out, and Joel can help us with this in the paragraph where it says the change, maybe you can see my right here, the change of food management company will not substantially increase the gross cost of this program at Paideia. The gross expense will exceed $300,000. Joel, can you shed some light on the net expense?
Yeah, so for the last 3 years, pre-COVID even, the school has turned a small net profit, exclusive of the expense of payroll for Don and those that are involved with it. The cost of the food, and you add in the reimbursement we receive from the National School Lunch Program, results in a small net profit each year. It's gone up a little bit during COVID because of the array of meals that we could serve during those times. So the number of meals we could serve increased the profit in dollars, but the margins have been very consistent each year. This contract stays within those exact same margin parameters. In other words, our reimbursement exceeds our food cost by the same percentage as it was last year. So it keeps us right in line with that. They were very competitive. Most of them came within that same range on the food cost.
Can I ask a clarifying question for Joel?
Mm-hmm.
You said that it's like every 5 years to keep us in compliance. Is that just with the food programs, or is that
just the food? Correct. Beth, I'm sorry. Yeah, this because it's federal money. There is a procurement guideline for anything federal that you do. So if you have a long-term vendor you work with year over year, you're required to rebid. No greater than 5 years in between. You can award multi-year contracts. So this, because it's National School Lunch Program, they just make it a hard and fast rule to work within. Don has to submit a ton of compliance stuff on a kind of a rhythm, if you will. And it was time for us with this, not to mention the challenges that Brian had mentioned. We were going to be bidding it anyway.
All right, if there's no other discussion, I'll entertain a motion to accept the contract of the food service. Well, no. This is a resolution.
I'll go.
Go ahead, give it a shot.
I move to accept the resolution related to the change of contract of Food Service Management Company to Nutrition One Food Service Management Company.
I'll second.
All right, I'm gonna stop sharing for 1 second.
And I'm assuming we have to sign these forms.
Yes, ma'am. It'll be available in the front office. Please sign them sometime in the next sometime.
Like a wet signature, not a DocuSign, like a real wet.
I can send it out DocuSign. Does anybody have a problem with me just sending this out as a DocuSign document?
Fine.
Okay, that's it. I'll do it. Watch for it. All right. Roll call. Mrs. Mendonça,
Yes.
Dr. Windsor, yes. Mrs. Baker,
Yes.
Mrs. Garrison,
Yes.
Dr. Pena,
Yes.
unanimous. The motion passes. All right, next. Transportation. Okay, going fast here, Joel. All right, the transportation wasn't nearly as rigorous and compliant heavy. So we reached out, Ms. Torres and we reached out to as many as we could find, including our current transportation. We received, we could only find 2 others really that could even respond. One said they didn't want to respond to this one. The other one, this Desert Choice transportation company, they responded right away. And our current, actually our current company was not invited to respond because we canceled the contract with them. So it wouldn't have made any sense. We went with Desert Choice Transportation Company because their roots are with transporting students who have IEPs. And that's how they even became a company. They have, oh no, we did have 2 companies. The one company that we didn't choose, the challenge was we couldn't get them on the phone frequently to submit another piece of paper. And it was so hard to get in touch with them that I told Don, if it's this hard to get in touch with somebody before a contract, that's not going to be good. So we just put theirs to the side as incomplete. But Desert Choice has a great history. The roots are with transporting children with IEPs. They understand positive behavioral intervention with supports, PBIS. They will have a dedicated radio person. What do you call that person? They have a dedicated, what is it?
Dispatch.
Dispatch. Yeah, just for our routes. They have so many more buses than our previous company did. And so we went with them. Their bid came well within our already proposed budget. And so there's no real increase of our already budget. Correct, Joel?
It's actually fairly budget positive, Brian. This bid, as it came back, was almost $50,000 less than I had budgeted for the year, given our old vendor's contract kind of assumptions, if you will. So it ended up being cheaper, believe it or not, than had we stayed with the other vendor. Not that we would have.
Is it because of the number of buses we're requesting? Is that why it's cheaper, or they're just cheaper?
Just contract value overall. I'm not sure on a per bus basis, Beth, if it is or not, but my calculations for the budget typically include a certain assumption of number of students that ride, which equates to bus routes. And with Beeline, I was anticipating we would be 267 this year to 275, somewhere in that range. And I think this one was a 213, Brian, was where this one came in at.
I wouldn't be able to remember the exact number.
From our conversation, I recall clearly 213. So it was a savings. And it may be, Beth, that we were able to get away with a different configuration of routes. I don't know. But
well, if they just send buses, that'll be an improvement.
That would help.
So, yeah.
Actually have transportation.
Yeah.
So one of the challenges this last year was the company we had often, always, almost, I can't say always because that's a loaded word, but frequently didn't provide enough buses in the afternoon. So that means that we had to start loading kids at 2:30 because the bus had to do a double route. Well, when you shut off school at 2:30 every day, pretty soon we're losing a lot of time over the week and the months. Frequently they'd have no bus in the morning. So that meant our parents were frustrated about, hey, there's no bus showed up this morning. Desert Choice Transportation Company has a parent communication system that'll go out on as text messages to communicate with parents.
I see them a lot in
Yeah.
the valley, so that's good.
Yeah, I will say, just from my intimate knowledge of our bus situation, I'm excited for the change.
Yeah. I have no other discussion. I would entertain a motion.
Well, I'm happy to move to accept the corporate resolution for the transportation change to Desert Choice Transportation.
All right, second.
I'll second.
All right, stop sharing my screen. All right, roll call. Mrs. Mendoza.
Yes.
Dr. Windsor, yes. Mrs. Baker.
Yes.
Miss Garrison.
Yes.
Dr. Pena.
Yes.
Unanimous, the motion passes. All right. All right, Mr. Bryce, I will make you co-person. Wait, well, that was a close one. It switched, I almost made Dr. Pena. All right, the next item is the Paideia Academies, Arizona Department of Education proposed budget for the fiscal year 2023. You're up, Mr. Bryce.
All right. So board members, we've got a 3-step process to budget approval this year, just like last year. The state budget was finally approved by the legislature and Senate last week. The budget files that you're looking at right here are the preliminary files or temporary files for the year. So we're going to go through the proposed and adopted versions of the budget in the preliminary files sometime in the middle of July. They'll release the permanent file. We'll draft a revision at that time, which is actually good, and we'll have a chance to kind of correct some of these numbers as we're in school at that point. We'll know better what our enrollment and other things are, but we have to prepare a revised budget by the 15th of September. So whatever you're approving right now, it must be revised before the 15th of September. So bear that in mind. With that said, this budget for the upcoming school year is based on an enrollment of 860 ADM. Our internal budget or operating budget is modeled to an enrollment of 876 ADM. So typically we will dial back our enrollment projection and some of our expenses and revenues a little bit when we put together the state budget, just so that it precludes us from being required to file monthly revisions going forward. We can if we want to, but we're not required to. So it's kind of a housekeeping tip. I'm going to walk through this with you. I do know we have some new board members that have not been through this process, at least with Paideia before. So I'll walk you through what we're looking at with each one of these. Right off the bat, the proposed budget, which you're looking at and possibly approving today, is the first step in the budget process. At least 10 days from the date that it is approved, but no later than the 15th of July, you'll approve the adopted budget. That length of time is key because we're required to publicly notice that we'll be approving our adopted budget at that next meeting, and it's got to be out for at least 10 days. We post it on the school's website, on the ADE website, and that way if members of the public want to show up and speak, not so much ask questions, but address the board based on what is in the budget, they're welcome to do so at that next meeting. It's rare, Brian, I don't think I've ever seen it, but it can happen, I suppose, that people can show up and do that. So we're looking at the cover page of the report. The meaningful information I'm going to kind of direct your attention to on this upper right-hand corner starts with the revenues that we budgeted for the current fiscal year that we're just now ending, $8.9 million. The budget for the upcoming year, $9.93 million. And this does not include the significant increases in compensation per pupil that were just approved in the state budget. This is actually using the 2022 funding formula. So the difference in revenues is we're planning to draw more heavily on some of the ESSER funding that it's available to us, because you have to draw that down by a certain time. And then obviously the increase in enrollment over the prior year will generate more revenue. And then the bottom right-hand corner
Can
One of
you
the
zoom in
things-
just a little bit, Mr.
Yes,
Bryce?
I sure can. I'm sorry. I always forget. I can see it better than you guys can on your end. So.
Oh,
bear
that's
with
much
me.
better right there.
Brian, let me know if someone raises their hand. I have to minimize that little group view.
Okay.
So bottom right-hand corner, average teacher compensation is probably the area of the budget that seems to draw the most interest from public and from teachers, in fact. Paideia, in the current fiscal year, we projected an average teacher compensation of $48,451. We are actually going to exceed that fairly handily. But by 2023, our projection currently, based on the base pay increases given to our current and existing staff, as well as our assumed classroom site fund bonus payments to them, averages out to $56,168. These numbers are both projections. When we file the annual financial report in October of each of these years, we'll give exact numbers that include all compensation to teachers. We typically will see these numbers go up a little bit from what we're projecting here. In the case of 2022, it'll go up quite a bit. But our goal is to do this as fairly and accurately and consistently as possible, but it's nice to see the growth in average teacher compensation projected. It's meaningful to the school and our ability to retain key talent. All right, moving on to the next page is just an overview of key contacts within the organization at certain positions described by the Department of Education. So we list everyone at this exact moment in time has an affiliation with the school in these roles, whether it's a board member or a staff member.
Remember to take Selena Arias off, okay?
Oh my, you said that earlier and I totally missed it. Okay, so who should that be?
We had a lot going on today. Selena Arias, who would be that person? What was Selena?
Italy.
Italy?
Well, it's one campus.
Well, has Miss Windsor's name, her title? What is her title? Because I thought technically she was, no?
That would make sense to me. It's someone that if the ADE reached out to, she could be counted on to get information to the charter representative. So it makes sense. I can strike that, and I don't know that I have to have a name in that line.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
So I'll just leave that one blank, but board, when that's going to be one of the changes noted. When you make your motion at the end as you approve the budget as presented with the changes noted.
This role right there is the executive assistant to the charter representative. I didn't look over there all the way, so.
That is one of the few on here that I can leave blank.
Yeah, I think leave that one blank because there is nobody right now.
Some schools don't have it.
And wouldn't we also need to remove Aaron?
Well, no, because it's this last, well.
Once he's officially off the school registry, if you will, with the Arizona State Board for Charter Schools, we could do that. And we might actually do that. By the time we revise this, Beth, I'm sure we can remove him off of there. If he's been officially recognized as off the board, then we can do that at the next turn of the budget.
Okay.
Or on this one, if you wish, I can make that one of the other changes.
Yeah, I'd say go ahead and remove it because I think I'll get all that work done. I'm just waiting for one set of fingerprint clearance cards and we're going to get that soon.
So with Ms. Arias and Dr. Hess both come off. Those are the two changes noted.
Yeah.
All right. The next page of the report, let me see if I can go a little bit bigger here. This is really the meat and potatoes of the entire budget. This presents to the reader all spending from school-wide funds, which in our case is classroom site funds, Proposition 123 funds, and all local funds. So that's where the spending is kind of displayed by its natural function. So if it's an instruction expense, it's function 1000. If it's a support expense, it's in the 2000s, non-instructional expenses, and so on. It breaks it down by regular education at the top, special education in the middle, and then moving from left to right, the natural object grouping or the type of expense it is. Is it a salary, a benefit, a purchase service of some kind, a supply, or an otherwise unclassifiable expense? So you can see this is just a lot of raw data. It doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot looking at this, but the far right-hand column draws your attention to the increases or decreases that we're noting in these categories of expenses over the prior year's budget. Most categories report an increase of somewhere between 3 and 5%. Some are much higher. The extreme swing in instruction up here at the top at 52% as well as the decrease in debt service, are related to our allocation of expense between school-wide funds and federal funds presented on the next page. We just changed the way we're going to allocate them between the years to draw differently on the ESSER funding. So that caused what appears to be an increase in instructional expenses. And it is a little bit related to the teacher compensation increases and the addition of a few staff members with our expansion, but it's certainly not a 52% increase in actual expenses. It's just a different allocation between state and local funds and federal funds, which are not presented here. Same exact thing with debt service. We're going to push more debt service expense into one of those federal categories. So for this year, we have an unusually low debt service load on state equalization, kind of an anomaly. The bottom line here, this is all spending across all funding sources. $9.125 million is what's included in this budget for expenses. And again, this is a modeled down or pared down version of your budget slightly based on the reduced student count. The next page of the report is a kind of a hodgepodge of things, but it gives you a good breakdown side by side of federal revenues and expenditures, which are one and the same. If we spend a Title I dollar, we have to spend it to get it. So revenues equal expenses. All federal funds draw to zero at the end of every year. So this $2.385 million in expense is also revenue for the Fed. A little bit of SEI funding coming in right there. I'm planning on a capital expansion that will be completed by 6/30 of the upcoming year. It's possible. It might be in July that it gets completed, about $3.5 million in project costs for the expansion. And then special education spending over here on the right does show a market increase over the prior year based on really just inflationary increases and staff increases in compensation. And then teacher compensation increases here are what we're using to direct our instructional improvement funds to. A little bit of an increase in funding and expense associated there. Of that $9.1 million in expenses, a little over $5 million of it is direct classroom instruction expense. So something related to the class, whether it's salaries, benefits, supplies, curriculum, FF&E, that kind of thing. This does not include indirect costs like facilities and overhead. So pretty remarkable direction of it, our resources to the classroom as far as a percentage of the budget in direct cost. The rest of this is just kind of, it's not meaningless, but it's just random information. The amount of food service we're covering with state equalization, our debt service and principal that we're paying against our facilities in total, regardless of fund, and then an assumption of the number of teachers and their classification or certification levels down here. And that is it. The next page is an overview of our anticipated classroom site fund expenditures. The school will be funded at the rate of $708 per pupil for the upcoming school year paid on the weighted student count. We anticipate based on 860 ADM, the school will generate $743,752 in classroom site funds, and it anticipates spending all of it in the instructional role, supporting and maintaining teacher-based pay increases, and hiring new teachers as we expand. As we're going to direct those funds. We may, in fact, spend all of that money in slightly different categories. We may end up putting some of that into student support. It's not important for this. We can do that in the revision if we've determined at that time we're going to do it. But based on conversations with the management team today, I thought this was certainly an appropriate direction to allocate the classroom site fund expenditures.
Yeah.
And then the last page is SEI funding, which is Structured English Immersion Program funding. It's a special state fund designed to support our English language learner acquisition program. We're planning on paying for a majority of one teacher and some of their benefits out of this fund. It's not an entire teacher's salary, but it's over 3/4 of it. Then the last page of this is a budget summary, which is a compilation of all of the data on the other pages in kind of an executive summary format. This is the minimum that must be posted with the agenda for the public notice of hearing. Most schools just post this entire budget package. Nothing wrong with doing that. But that is it. So I'm going to pause and see if there's any questions from the board as it relates to the state budget for the upcoming year.
I think I heard a number of maybe $708 per student. Did I hear that right? And I don't think I saw it on the screen, but maybe.
Yeah, it wasn't on the screen, but for classroom site funds, yes, ma'am. The funding level for classroom site funds, which is a special restricted fund derived from a state sales tax override. We get this funding to primarily increased teacher compensation. They've now widened that net to allow us to pay for student support related services like behaviorists, therapists, and things like that for social emotional learning if needed. We have always directed it to teachers in the past. Most of this, to be fair, supports their regular base compensation. It's not like it's an additional amount of money on top of their contract, but there is a healthy chunk of this that is in fact additional money for performance on top of their contract. But that $708 per pupil is the funding level paid out of the weighted student count each year. So it's a lot of money that comes into the school for that one specific purpose.
Thanks.
Any other questions on the state budget? Doesn't sound like it. So Brian, I'm gonna turn this back over to you momentarily for a vote.
All right, hearing no other discussion, entertain a motion to approve the Paideia Academies, Inc. ADE proposed budget for fiscal year 2023. Somebody could also say
So
so.
moved.
There you go. Good job, sir. And a second.
I'll second.
All right, roll call. Mrs. Mendonça,
Yes.
Dr. Windsor, yes. Mrs. Baker,
Yes.
Dr. Pena,
Yes.
Miss Garrison,
Yes.
unanimous, yes, motion passes.
I've already made those changes to the file that we discussed, so it is in good shape.
Now, before we adjourn, I would like to, no, let's adjourn, then we can set our next meeting. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor of adjourning our meeting, please indicate by an aye.
Aye.
I.
Any opposed? Please so indicate. Hearing no opposition to adjournment, we will have this meeting stand adjourned at 6:04 p.m. Now, we need to chat again, right, Joel?
Yeah, I need a date and time for the adopted budget meeting so I can post notice.
Now, we have to do it by the 15th, but we
You can
have
do it
to
on
let
the
10
15th.
days go by, right?
Yeah, it's got to be 10 days from now at least, and you can
Is
do
it
it on
calendar or business?
the calendar days.
So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The 7th or after. The week of 11th through the 15th is going to be it's going to be pressing on Mrs. Mendonça, Ms. Garrison, and myself. So if it's possible for the 8th, we just need a quorum. That would be nice. That is a Friday. Wait, can we do it on the 7th, Joel? Or does that count?
Hold on one second. Let me pull up my calendar and count along with you, just to make sure I'm not steering you astray.
28, 28,
7,
3, 4, 5, 6,
9,
7, 8,
10.
9.
I got 11 days on the 7th.
So you count today?
Yeah, if you go from today, because that's a day, calendar day. I post a notice in 2 minutes and it's a day. So you could do it on the 7th and it's 10 days or 11, depending on how you're counting, but it's a safe day nonetheless to do it.
Okay.
I would prefer a Thursday than a Friday, please.
Me too, right? Anybody opposed? It's not a motion or anything, but would the 7th work? And is during the day or the afternoon? There's some other items we need to discuss because of the budget. We have some other things we want to pass through the board.
That will work for me.
Yes, I can be flexible. Mhm.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Baker.
I should be available. I'm traveling home, but I'm driving, so I think I can get on my cell phone.
Oh, yeah, just listen in and just do the
Yep.
vote. All right,
Yep.
sounds good. All right, do we need to do it at 5 o'clock or can we go a
You
little
can do
earlier?
it
Anybody
anytime
okay
you
with
want to on
earlier?
that day. And just so you know, I don't know that I'm available that day. I don't know that you need me for the adopted budget. You're approving the exact same thing you just approved in its adopted form.
It might be different, wouldn't it? If we do some other, oh, no, it wouldn't. We would do that on an amended form later, right?
Yeah, if we're gonna, when we post this publicly, in my opinion, it's best to leave it exactly as it is, go all the way through adopted, and if you want to change it, we can revise it whenever you want to after that. But we
Gotcha.
don't want to change it between those two versions because the public's going to see the proposed version. That's the one they think that we're voting on.
Would you feel comfortable with Ms. Garrison and Beth and I having a discussion about what we discussed today? Without
Totally. And I
you?
may be able to plug into a call. That's a travel day. I'm coming back from vacation and I'm not exactly certain where I'll be at whatever time. So I will plug in if at all possible. And if not, we'll talk before then.
Yeah.
And figure out what needs to happen there. Yep.
Okay. All right. The 7th, then if we could meet at 2, then I think we could all go home. Right, Ms. Mendoza, Ms. Garrison?
That would be nice. So I'm back at work at that time.
2
I
o'clock.
can
All right,
make that
Joel.
Done.
All right, July 7th, 2 o'clock. And I need to post this on our website, right?
Yep. I can send you this form, or if you have a place that you normally post it, you can do it that way, but I'll send you the actual Excel spreadsheet here that they make us post on ADE.
Okay. And then I'm going to create a DocuSign and send that out. I think I'll create a DocuSign for the 2 resolutions as well. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
You.